Hey guys, it is your girl Nikisha Brunson, the other half of Urban Bush Babes, coming to you from my living room slash kitchen today. I wanted to talk about a very heavy topic that's very sensitive for a lot of people. I was really hesitant on talking about it because of fear of just nasty comments and judgment, but I have moved past that, and at this point, I really don't care about people's opinions and bad judgment because I want my transparency to at least help one person out there. And what I want to talk about is my own diagnosis and my own battle slash journey with ADHD and anxiety disorder. So at age 31, which was back in 2014, I finally went to the doctor and I was diagnosed with ADHD and anxiety disorder. Now I know a lot of people are like, oh, you don't have that, I know you, and there are people out there, just like a lot of, for ones that have known someone that's committed suicide, and I would like to send my condolences out to all the loved ones and the family members who lost beautiful souls to suicide. We have TT Branch, the co-founder of Miss Jessie's, Lee Thompson, the actor from Rizzoli and Isles and the famous Jet Jackson, and Simone Battle, the singer from the girl group GRL, that committed suicide. A lot of times this stuff is hidden. We know how to hide and put on an act, or the people closest to us see us battling, but sometimes they don't know how to put their finger on it, or maybe they don't think it's as bad for whatever reason. I think that this issue, these mental illnesses and these disorders definitely need to be talked about. And I just want to let you guys know, like, I'm just not talking out my behind right now. This is something I've been dealing with my whole life. My son has ADHD as well, and I have a lot of family members that have been diagnosed with ADHD. And I also, if you haven't read my bio on urbanbushbabes.com, I have an undergraduate, a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's degree in childhood education. So I have a heavy background on psychology and human behavior and the mind, and I've always been passionate about it. Not only because I find it interesting, but because of issues in my family and with my son and with myself. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about that, and forgive me if I use my phone for some of my notes because there is a lot to cover and I just want to make sure I touch on the most important things. I don't want to make this video super long. So if I'm going to break down normal anxiety versus general anxiety disorder, which is what I have. The difference between normal worrying and general anxiety disorder, GAD, G-A-D, is that the worrying involved in GAD is excessive, intrusive, persistent, and debilitating. With normal anxiety, your worrying doesn't get in the way of your daily activities and responsibilities. You're able to control your worrying. Your worries, while unpleasant, don't cause significant distress. Your worries are limited to a specific small number of realistic concerns. Your bouts of worrying last for only a short period of time. However, with generalized anxiety disorder, your worrying significantly disrupts your job, activities, or social life. Your worrying is uncomfortable. Your worries are extremely upsetting and stressful. You worry about all sorts of things and tend to expect the worst. You've been worrying almost every day for at least 6 months. Most people with GAD experience a combination of emotional, behavioral, and physical symptoms. Emotional symptoms would be constant worries running through your head, feeling like your anxiety is uncontrollable, intrusive thoughts about things that make you anxious. You try to avoid thinking about them, but you can't. An inability to tolerate uncertainty, a pervasive feeling of apprehension or dread. Behavioral symptoms would be the inability to relax, enjoy quiet time, or be yourself, difficulty concentrating or focusing on things, putting things off because you feel overwhelmed, avoiding situations that make you anxious. Physical symptoms would be feeling tense, having muscle tightness or body aches, having trouble falling asleep or staying asleep because your mind won't quit, feeling edgy, restless, or jumpy, stomach problems, nausea, diarrhea. So note, if you've been struggling with anxiety and fears your whole life, it's likely your anxiety symptoms are due to GAD. If your anxiety symptoms are relatively new, this could be a sign of a different problem. So sorry for reading all those notes. But the experience of generalized anxiety disorder that I've read to you guys, the difference between not having and having it, I experienced all that stuff and it was normal to me growing up. I always thought that it came from living in New York City because it's a very stressful place. And I do stress that environment plays a heavy role and who you allow in your life, whether friends, family, significant others, even people you work with, play a huge role in your mental stability. So if you have mental illness or a disorder, your environment, it's going to be stressors or non-stressors. So New York was not a good place for me, but I always thought it was from past things like my dysfunctional childhood, the abuse, the sexual abuse, having a child at 16, in and out of bad relationships, choosing the wrong partners. I always thought those things, not having a father in my life, I always thought those things were the cause of my anxiety / depression. Then I realized after moving away from New York and marrying my amazing, wonderful husband and God blessing me with more than I could have ever imagined, I still had this problem with anxiety. I would hop in my car and for no reason, I could be headed to the grocery store and for no reason, I would start panicking and having heart palpitations. I always had an issue with sleeping. I've been an insomniac since I was a young teen. That's because all the worries flooding my mind. Waking up in the morning just in a bad mood, really irritable, mood swings, low patience, just for no reason. All those things that I talked about before. So I decided to go finally get tested by a doctor that specialized in brain disorders like ADHD and anxiety and stuff. So I went and I found that out. I was surprised more about the ADHD. I suspected that I had ADD because that it runs in my family, and majority of the time with these mental illnesses and disorders, they are most of the time genetic and they run in the family. And like I said, it's in my family. So I suspected it, and I would always tell my friends and my husband Carl, like, I think I have ADD. So I was shocked to find out I had ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, the one with the hyperactivity. Now that I look back at my time in school, I see why junior year I pretty much dropped out, because I would go to school and I would be feeling so depressed and anxious that I would just leave school in the middle of the day and go to my friend's house, or I'd go home and I would just cry constantly. I cried for a whole year, and I remember that because I was pregnant. There were a lot of outside factors affecting me at that time, because being a teen and being pregnant, it is scary, and not having the support that a teen needs, or that any pregnant woman needs, regardless of the age. But still, it just, the negative feelings from when I was younger, everything that, like I said, I explained when I was talking about anxiety, and it is very closely linked to depression. So this diagnosis was a real eye-opener, and it took a lot of weight off my shoulders, because there is this stigma, there is this thing where a lot of people have this expectation of, you need to be strong, and I don't believe in drugs, people turn into zombies and it makes you commit suicide. And while there are horror stories from people being on medication, there are also success stories. It all depends on the drug and the treatment that you're doing. And a drug is not the fix-all. It's not the cure-all. Medication is just a tool. And I am on medication now, which is not the easiest thing to admit, again, because people judging me for being on it. I'm not a zombie. I still have all my emotions. I cry during movies like The Notebook. So, and my son still riles me up. So my emotions are still there. I was very scared of that. And I'm not big on medications. I'm very into holistic health and all natural things. That's how I live. So I'm very disciplined with our diet as a household, and my husband is on board. We're a team together. So we've excluded things out of our diet for Jaden's sake, for my sake, and also, although my husband, God bless him, doesn't have any mental illnesses or disorders, he has a healthy, functioning brain, he still wants to live healthy. So, and wants to be example for his stepson, Jaden. So we do the no gluten and, tons of veggies, and we eat vegetarian some days, and then we switch back to meats and fish, and it's very clean eating. A lot of supplements, high omega-3 fatty acids, coconut oil, exercise, making sure that there's a lot of laughter in the home, a lot of forgiveness. But sometimes diet and all those external changes aren't enough. So what I learned as a person that has anxiety disorder, for my anxiety disorder, I learned that a normal, healthy brain produces a certain amount of serotonin. My brain produces a small amount of serotonin, and serotonin is the chemical that makes you feel happy, and you don't flip out over things, you're not anxious. If something kind of bad happens, you know how to handle it. You're not like going to the extreme and flying off the handle, or getting super depressed or anxious and crazy about it. You handle it in a healthy way. But because I don't produce enough serotonin, I do have this very doom and gloom and like worried and heart palpitations and nausea all the time, and just like constant anxiety. And I really did think that was normal, because majority of the people I was around growing up, and growing up in New York, it's just, that's the norm for a lot of people. It's kind of like part of the culture. And until I grew and was I started making better choices where I now live in a very peaceful, healthy environment, and I'm very careful with who I allow into my life, and it was still there. So it didn't make any sense. And I know there's a lot of other people that are dealing with it, and you might think that it's normal. Try to look at someone that you know doesn't do the stuff that you do, doesn't react the way you act, doesn't feel this constant fear and anxiety day in and day out, and ask them questions, because that's what I did with my husband. I asked him if he ever felt those feelings or reacted that way. Well, I know my husband's like super laid back. Anyone that knows him, he's cool as a cucumber. So I'm just like, and then when I see other people, I'm like, man, like they don't have these same issues, so it's not normal. So all these years I was living like this, thinking that it was normal. Like you get used to just living like on edge or super depressed. But it's not normal to live like that. There are people out there that are not living like that. And my husband's one of them. And thank God, my son, who's 14, he's one of them. He doesn't have any of those issues, even though he has ADHD. So I am on an SSRI, which is something about serotonin reuptake. I don't have to be on it forever. And my doctor said that after a year, my brain should have formed the neurons that it needs to, and those connections to start producing the normal levels of serotonin that it's supposed to be producing, that it wasn't producing before off the medication. There are natural things that people could try, like SAMe, and that would be SAM and then an E. I have read wonderful things about it. I tried it for a bit. It wasn't enough, along with my diet and exercising and changing my surroundings. So I decided to do a trial of this SSRI, and I want to disclose the name of it because I don't want to push anybody to take medication. This is just something that I want to share, because there are people out there that need to be on medication, and the natural way, or just being strong, or no, there's nothing wrong with you, everyone's like that, I even have anxiety, or I get depressed sometimes. That stuff doesn't work. Like, it's like telling a diabetic to produce insulin. It's just not going to happen. A mental illness and a disorder starts in the brain. You cannot change your brain through those things that I just mentioned. Medication is needed for things like bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, the list goes on. And like I said, there are success stories. I haven't had any side effects. I feel normal. I know what it feels like to be normal. I know what it feels like to be like my husband now. Like, I wake up in the morning, I don't complain, I don't have all these worries, my insomnia is gone. I don't have this fear of like, I don't want to go outside. I had 1 year back in New York, or maybe it was even longer than that, where I did not want to go outside unless I had someone with me. That's how bad my anxiety was. Like, it was debilitating. It was stopping me and preventing me from living my life to its full potential. I would be in bed. I would be thinking of suicide all the time. I attempted suicide at 15, and thank God I wasn't successful, or I wouldn't be here being able to share this with you guys and helping somebody else out and being married to my beautiful husband and raising my beautiful son. So this is why I want to share this. I want people to get more educated, not to be so judgmental, not to write off all medications. Like I said, there are some horror stories There are bad medications. The one I'm on has been out since the 60s, so there's been a lot of testing done on it. It's not addictive. I'm on the lowest dose. I'm hoping to be off of it in a year, and it has helped change my life. Like, the people that are closest to me notice huge changes. I'm so much more patient. I don't fly off the handle for stuff. I'm able to think things through without all these things flying in my head and going from 0 to 100 in 2 seconds. I don't have this anxiety. I'm able to talk about this. Before, I wouldn't have been able to. I would have been like, oh, I feel nauseous. I've actually had panic attacks where I've thrown up. That is not normal. That is not healthy, and no one deserves to live like that. So now to touch a little bit on my ADHD, that as well, my ADHD isn't as bad as my son's ADHD, although I had a lot of troubles and I failed classes and I'm really horrible at math still. Thank goodness my husband minored in math in college because he's the math professor around here and tutor for my son. I am able to excel in the stuff that I'm interested in, like psychology, like health, like cooking and the arts. Like, I'm so good at that stuff. People with ADHD are really good at what they're gifted at and what they're interested in. So a lot of times teachers, I was a teacher myself, and I have experienced Jaden's teachers thinking he doesn't have ADHD because one minute he's able to focus and pay attention, and then the next minute he's off. Like, he's playing with the window shade, or he's flicking something, or he's being really impulsive with how he's responding to students and teachers. And I've had a teacher tell me, I've seen him pay attention, he can pay attention, basically he doesn't have ADHD. And it's unfortunate that people that aren't experiencing it themselves can't put themselves in someone else's shoes, or aren't raising a child, or have family members that are experiencing ADHD, so they write it off as it doesn't exist, oh, everyone has it. That is not true. That is such a lie, and that is wrong thinking, because there are people that have ruined their lives. I know them personally from not getting the proper help, whether it's therapy, whether it's learning how to get on a more structured life plan, learning how to do schedules, learning what jobs to stay away from. Like, people with ADHD should not be getting into jobs where they have to manage a lot of things. A lot of times they excel, well, we excel more in the arts. Like, Will.I.am has ADHD, and he's talked about it before. And there's a lot of people, Lisa Ling, the journalist from CNN, and that show that he's playing on the OWN network, My America, she has ADHD, and she actually got diagnosed on her show, and she knew, looking back, okay, that's what it was. And it's a huge weight off your shoulder, and for people to dismiss it because they don't understand it is just wrong. Because there's new research, majority of the people that are incarcerated that have been tested for ADHD have ADHD. So what happens to people like me and my son is we fall through the cracks. We're not doing well in school, and we're labeled bad. So we end up dropping out. We end up hanging in a bad crowd, and we end up incarcerated. So this is a generational thing, and it's growing because people with ADHD, the world's more populated now. People are having more kids. So it's growing, we're passing it on. Because like I said, most of these mental illnesses and disorders like depression, anxiety, ADHD are genetically passed down. So I just hope that through this video, I have cleared some things up, and I really hope that we can get more educated on this. And I'm going to leave my email below, link below in the description box, and I really hope that this helps shed some light. Like I said, this is not the easiest thing to talk about. Don't feel like you have to be strong. Be there for the people that need it. Don't assume because things look great on social media or on TV that the person's doing great. That's not true. Not everybody is honest or transparent. I really try my best to live with integrity and transparency, so whatever people see on the outside is what's going on behind closed doors. That's just how I like to live, but not everybody's like that. So just pay attention, get educated. Let's continue to talk about this. Let's take the stigma off. Don't judge people for being on medication, because it saves lives. And it's a whole process. There's no one cure-all. It's a combination of things. And I will see you guys in my next video. Ciao!